Can you hear me still?
Yes.
What? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I see.
It's too bad I didn't record all that, Kevin, because
Yeah,
that was pretty
that was
good.
that was.
People would have probably enjoyed that.
I enjoyed it.
Um, oh man,
Yeah,
let's see. Well, I got to ask you, were you a little surprised when my nephew came walking into your store not too long ago? And
I was. That was so nice to hear your name. I hadn't talked to you for so long. Told him I see you online a little bit, but he talked about your podcast thing too. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds cool. So I'm glad you invited me on here
yeah,
to
he
do
got
this.
me
Yeah.
a shirt, and I haven't had a chance to wash it yet before I put it. Well, I could have put it on
Yeah.
without washing it, but
Yeah.
and I was gonna wear my old. I have this gray button-down heavy metal shop
Oh yeah.
shirt in my
I remember those.
closet,
Yeah.
but like I said, we switched our time, and being the old man that I am, I laid down for a minute. Next thing you know, I was in La La Land for a while.
Yeah, I
But
get that. I need a nap, and I usually don't get one, but I've actually fallen asleep in the shop before. I had a big lounge chair in the shop, and can you still hear me, Steve?
yes,
Oh, okay.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
For you people out there listening or watching or whatever, we had some technical difficulties, but we're trying to work our way through them.
Yeah, Grandpa's not too good with the technology.
It's
But
heavy
yeah,
metal,
anyway, once
man.
I fell asleep in the lounge chair, and some kids came in, and they're like, "Dude," it woke me up. So
Did you have music playing when you fell asleep?
yeah, I don't have the lounge chair anymore. That's dangerous, to sit in that. So.
Kevin, did you grow
Yeah.
up in Salt Lake City?
I did mostly. I was born here and then moved to Idaho, Twin Falls, Idaho, when right in the middle of fourth grade, and then moved back to Salt Lake right before ninth grade. So, like my first concerts I went to were in Idaho. I lived in Twin Falls when Evel Knievel did the jump.
Oh,
We actually
really?
watched the jump in his little rocket thing. We watched from one of my dad's friends lived closer to the canyon, and we watched from his roof in lawn chairs with binoculars. Um,
Wow.
and then and
How old were you when you moved back
Oh,
to Salt
I would have
Lake?
been like 12. When I moved back to Salt Lake, I was 14. Um, my first shows I saw in Boise, Idaho. My sister took me to the Edgar Winter Group, which was my first show in 1975. And then I saw Johnny Winter with Ted Nugent warming up, and then Black Oak, Arkansas with
Love
Ted
them.
East warming up. That was in 75. And we actually drove up with my sister and her boyfriend. He had a Camaro, with the big tires. He let me drive it. It was kind of like the Dazed and Confused movie. And we got
Yeah.
there early, and we got in the front row. So we saw Jim Dandy, Ruby Star was there, Tommy Aldridge on drums.
Love
So
Ruby Star.
that really stuck with me. That I still love Black Oak. And then
Uh,
moved to Salt Lake and saw Aerosmith in '76 with Stars warming up, and Derringer. So I saw Derringer again the next year
I
with his
was going to
band
mention,
Derringer.
did you know that he passed
I
away?
just saw that he passed away. Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
because I saw Edgar and Johnny together in concert. And
Oh, nice.
that was in 1976. And I was a teenager, obviously. And it was
Yeah.
Leonard Skinner opened, and it was the
Oh man.
original band. It was
Oh,
before,
Skinner in '76. I saw them
yeah.
here in '76. Yeah, that was something else.
You,
That's a great lineup.
You see, when people talk about going to concerts now and kids and stuff, it's like they're all excited and everything, but they had no idea. Back then, that was our whole life.
Oh, it
If
was. Yeah.
you had to you would buy your tickets and you'd wait every month. Like you, I went and saw Aerosmith, Alice Cooper, Steve Miller, Edgar and Johnny. Aerosmith, I used to see all the time because they're from Boston. I grew up
Yeah.
in the Boston area. But you know what? I saw Aerosmith several times, but I never saw them with stars. I wish I could have
Oh
seen
yeah, that
stars.
was a great show. In fact, it was in the Salt Palace, and we had seats. We had seats, but we jumped down to the floor for Stars. So we were in the front row for Stars. And Derringer, his band, Derringer was that one album that he put
Rock
out
and
called
roll hoochie
Derringer.
coo, right?
Well, that was later because Rock and Roll Hoochie that was like '73. This was '76. So this would have been when he had Kenny Aronson playing bass with him. It was
Oh
like
wow.
a three piece. Um, And anyways, we saw Stars in the front row, and then they made us move, for Aerosmith. But we did see Aerosmith were great in '76 too. They really
Yeah.
were.
Yeah.
And I saw them in '78 with AC/DC warming up, and AC/DC stole that show. The
So
Aerosmith were kind of messed up by '78.
when did you actually like start listening to obviously you're talking about all hard rock here now. Was that
Well,
the
I would have
thing for
been I
you?
would have been in sixth grade, and I saw Alice Cooper on. I think it was in concert, and we were watching, and I didn't know. He's got the makeup on, he's singing. I think he was like Sick Things. I think he was singing, and my little sister Yvette, whom you've met.
Yes, I
Um,
did meet
she was
Yvette.
watching with me, and the snake came around his head, and she screamed. And this was on the TV, so I thought that was pretty cool. And so that was my introduction to, Alice. And then I saw the Rolling Stones on one of the shows, and that's, Mick Jagger had the blue eyeshadow. They were kind of glammy at that point, that in the '70s. And I saw Black Oak, Arkansas on one of those shows too. And I just started buying like Cream magazine, Hit Parade. I really loved it. Just the
Yeah.
whole music thing. In fact, in sixth grade, my teacher would let us kids bring records to the class, and she would put the lyrics up on the little screen. She'd write them down, and they could sing along. And people would bring like the Carpenters and Stills and Crofts and stuff like that. And I brought like Billion Dollar Babies. That was the new Alice Cooper album at the time. School's Out was the one that was out, and then Billion Dollar Babies came out while I was in sixth grade. And I brought Deep Purple, Machine Head, and Black Oak, Arkansas, Ranch and Roll. And I remember her looking over. She never put my lyrics up on the screen,
Of
and she
course not.
turned my records down. But the kids were very interested in my records. They were cool. And then she did this thing where she wanted an assignment for us to present a commercial to the class. And so, like, I had a friend that he brought his Stingray bike, and he did the Chester Cheeto commercial. I don't know if you remember that on TV. And then I got it. My mother did my makeup. I did Alice Cooper makeup. I had a wig. This is I was in sixth grade, and I had a little cassette player, and I had the School's Out cassette, and I lip synced to Alma Mater. And a friend came out of the coat room. He had a jacket and a tie on, and after the song, and he said, "Say, Alice, what kind of makeup is that you wear?" And I said, "Maybelline, of course." And that was my commercial. So that, yeah. Anyway.
No, was it always hard rock when you were a kid, or did you start with like something more commercial or
No, it was pretty much hard rock. I do remember seeing the Carpenters on. My mailman's here. I don't have anything. We're doing this podcast thing. My friend Steve. So,
So maybe tomorrow.
okay. Have a good day.
All right.
Okay. See you. Um, sorry.
That's
Now
all
I've
right.
lost track of what I'm talking about.
It's all right. I got some questions I want to ask you. So I'm curious about,
Yeah.
I've been to Salt Lake City. We hung out several times, and
Yeah.
I thought it
Some
was
fun
one of the
times. Yeah.
coolest places. And I don't understand why there's this misconception about the place. And then, it was really interesting because I always assumed that Utah was all the same. But then I don't like to talk about politics, but I have to right now to make this point. So I looked Salt Lake City up and I was curious how they voted there, and I couldn't believe it. It was like 60, 70% blue. And I'm like, wait a second,
Oh
how can
yeah.
that be?
When Bernie came to town, before that, Trump was elected the first time, and Bernie did those rallies. There was thousands of people. Angie and I went to him. Angie actually phone banked for Bernie, and she got me to do it. To go down and call people to vote for Bernie. To get, to support Bernie.
But the rest
So
of
yeah,
the
there's a lot.
states, the rest of the states not like that though, right?
Oh shit. Oh, the hell, Hannah.
Do you have to,
Oh, my dog. She's out front, and some dog just ran past, and she's pulling a chair.
do you need me to pause it?
Thanks. Let me check one
Okay.
second.
This is fun.